What was your closest call? My friends and I nearly met the end of our life while we were out on a road trip. Back in the early 2000s, my friends and I had just graduated high school and decided to go on a long road trip all across Europe. At the time, we thought it was a great idea, even though we had to ride in my very old, beaten-up diesel car. It was rough because we could only go a maximum of 85 kilometers per hour, but we were able to make it to our destinations, so we had no complaints about how long and tiring the trip was. After about 8 days of traveling around, we decided to head back home to our country. However, that's when we encountered the life-threatening situation. After dinner, we had decided to continue driving late into the night to finally reach our home by sunrise. Even if it was dark out, we figured it would be easy since the roads would slowly become more familiar the closer we got home. At around 11 p.m., I switched seats with the driver to take over. I was listening to M2M on the radio to keep myself awake while everyone else slept. One of the roads I drove on changed from smooth to rough roads, which typically had me worried, but things were smooth sailing the entire trip. I figured nothing could go wrong, so instead of taking things very slow, I decided to go through the bumpy road with a bit more speed, despite hearing creaking metal sounds all around the car. At the end of the rough road, we approached an old railroad crossing. I made sure to take things slow because the train tracks were fairly steep for a car as small as mine. Then, the worst situation possible occurred. Midway through, I heard a loud thud sound, as if a large piece of metal had slammed onto the metal tracks, and the car refused to move forward. The more I gently pushed on the gas, the more it felt like my car would suddenly come apart. I turned off the car's engine and got out to check on the problem. The blood drained from my face, and I let out a loud curse word when I saw what had been making all the noise I had been hearing. The left side of the bumper had fallen off and got lodged into the train track, and the more I forced my car forward, the more it got stuck under the car and into the track. I got back into the driver's seat, panicking while my friends were still sleeping. I sat there thinking of how I got into the situation in the first place, and suddenly recalled the metal car sounds I had been hearing earlier while driving on the bumpy road. But now that we were stuck, I didn't have time for regrets. I needed a solution. I pressed on the horns of the car to wake everyone up and help me get the car loose. My friends yawned and barely noticed the situation that we were in. I explained how I needed their help because we had been stuck for more than 5 minutes at the crossing. They laughed, saying that I had nothing to worry about since trains don't move at night. Well, we were wrong. After about 3 more minutes of joking around in the car, a bell sound started blasting in our ears and the fence for the crossing started coming down, trapping us inside the crossing in a matter of seconds. My friends and I started panicking together. Half of them were yelling at me to drive forward while the others begged me to reverse. But my car was old and my panic made me indecisive. All I could hear was the sound of my heartbeat in my ear. The ground started shaking and we heard the train moving towards us in the distance. My friends screamed, shaking my chair, asking me to do anything to save them. In a split-second decision, I yelled for everyone to get out of the car and run back behind the crossing's fence. My friends started sprinting off, but our friend in the passenger seat remained frozen, crying and shaking. Instead of running off, I ran over to her door, dragged her out, and jumped to push us out of the way onto the grass beside the road. We stared at each other in the dark, catching our breaths while lying there. We heard the sound of the train ramming into the car and gently pushing it out onto the other side of the road. The train had moved slower than we had imagined, but the car was still pretty much totaled. Luckily, the train conductor had seen us from a distance and managed to slow down to lessen the impact. He had also called the police to help us out and get us to a hospital to get checked. Our parents had to drive hours out of the country to pick us up. It was seriously a crazy experience, and I've learned to be smarter with my driving decisions as well as learning to maintain my car properly in the future.